YouTube, hello. Welcome to the thickest dev diary to date. And I realized that after this, I believe it's after this, there's 4 more dev diaries. So we have 1 month left of dev diaries. Let's go. I'm very excited about this one and the next one. And all of them, of course, but this one and the next one is. It'll be a long one. I'm glad to hear, Warner. I'm glad it was good. I'm glad it was good. Jelly thinks that you look bonita, señorita, aujourd'hui. Oh, that's French. I went French. Anywho, Dev Diary number 9, Economy and Production, City Skylines II. So we have a little bit of a bet going on YouTube. Over here on Twitch, the bet is, will we get through this Dev Diary in under 2 hours? Let's find out. We're gonna do our best. I have prepared my notes as best as I can. And, chat, I hope that you've been studying. There will be a quiz at the end of the show that is worth 69% of your grade. So get your notes out, get your highlighters out. Let's get into this. Uh-oh. So some of these are TLDRs, some of these are not. Oh, right. Okay, here we go. We're all right. Everything's fine. Everything's fine. So, buckle up, buddos. This is a big one. TLDR of this paragraph is we are gonna learn you about economies and we live in a society. Good? Okay, I'm glad we are keeping up. TLDR of this paragraph, the economy is similar to City Skylines 1, but City Skylines 1 was simple. And the TLDR of this paragraph, City Skylines 2 economy was redesigned from the ground up and affects all of these things that we are about to read about. Now, I've spelt effects wrong there, and I'm very upset with myself. So, I've already failed the test. And it is what it is. All right. I'm going to read this slowly, and feel free to, yell at me in chat if you need me to recover something. I know I need to go to jail. It's true. All right. So design philosophy. We wanted to create a deep and complex system without it being too complicated for you to manage, allowing you to spend more time building the city rather than worrying about every minute detail at every possible turn. Thumbs up. The system is modeled after real-life economic models to tie more realism into the game, and it is designed to balance itself out in most cases to support both new players and newly founded cities in their first steps to becoming bustling metropolises. Dirt. Hello, friend. I hope you had a really good weekend. Goobers, the lot of you. So, based AF, let's go. Dirt, thanks. 30 months. That's a very, very long time. Thank you, buddy. Thank you. I hope you're well. I appreciate so much a team building a strategy management game, which can be so min-maxy of a genre that also prioritizes other ways of having fun. That is the biggest pog to me. Big pog champ. Poggers. This paragraph says that they're trying to help players who are new to this type of game or to this game in general still have fun with the min-maxiness that can be a strategy management game. It features financial aid in the form of government subsidies, which help the city's budget by taking care of a portion of expenses in the early game. The subsidies also include unemployment benefits for private citizens to keep them on their feet, able to improve their lives and become contributing members of society. So, 2 seconds. First, subsidies to help, rad. Second, unemployment bennies, based. We will see the government subsidies in action a couple pages down. So it actually shows us where to see that in the video game in one of the pictures. While the economic system is designed to support you in your city building vision, the government aid decreases as the city grows and becomes successful, allowing you to fully stretch your city management wings and fly. As you play the game, you can start to delve deeper into the economic simulation and its intricacies, seeing how the various agents make decisions based on your actions, as well as the existence of other agents, and you can start to make meaningful choices, guiding the city towards whatever your end goal is. So my like reading between the lines here, which is what I try to offer for these dev diaries, this tells me that the devs feel the game is, like City Skylines 2, is genuinely more, quote, difficult and more managey than City Skylines 1. But it sounds like they are committed to providing a game for players of a like broader scale of difficulties. And it sounds like they're committed to helping players who are less confident with the management bits to learn and get more comfortable with them. I hope I'm right in this, and I hope that I'm not just being a kiss ass. And I think I'm right. Darth, hey buddy. Hello, good day. Ana, yeah. You know, I think, Aaron, that's a great question. So for YouTube folks who are maybe just listening, Aaron in chat has asked, what if you don't know what your end goal is? I feel like if you're playing cities, either 1 or 2, and you're ever in a position where you just kind of like don't know what to do next, I feel like your demand bars, like the green, blue, orange, and now purple demand, can always kind of give you a direction to go to. If you're farting around and you don't know what to do, you just look at your demand and you see, oh, I've got a large residential demand. Now my direction is to go and figure out where I can house some people. And beyond that, you just kind of like figure out or make up your goals as you go along, I would think. I'm gonna have a quick sip of tea and then we're gonna get into the economic cycle. This is nuts. So each agent tracks the amount of money and resources that they have. So agents being Sims for the most part. You could also like roll in services and that sort of thing. But generally, if you're reading this and you hear the word agent and you're confused, agent equals a Sim, a person. G-Money, good luck. Households spend money to buy resources and pay rent. Businesses buy resources and turn them into other resources, which they then sell to other businesses or customers. I've got a flowchart for that. Businesses also pay rent for their building, which is taken into account when they calculate their profit. Certain city services also consume resources, and these expenses are added to their monthly upkeep. To explain that last sentence, think about how like a hospital has stuff that it sells, like it sells pharmaceuticals, that kind of thing. That's what they mean by city services consuming resources. So did I TLDR this? I did. So TLDR of this big paragraph is each type of zone, so residential, commercial, industry, office, needs the others, and you can use taxes to influence zones' growth. We learn about this in detail over the rest of the dev diary, so I'm going to kind of skim over the paragraph here. Have I TLDR'd this? No. So here's where I had to read, genuinely, I had to read this paragraph like I wrote down 69 times, but it was probably a dozen times I had to really read this to kind of maybe think that I get it. And if you're here, I would love to know if this is how you are perceiving this as well. So money doesn't circulate in a closed system, so it doesn't just constantly loop around in a circle. It comes in and out from places. So rent, import payments, company profits, and player income are money sinks that remove money from the economic simulation. To balance the money sinks, the simulation also features money sources in the form of paid rents and company profits, and the funds used by the player, which are distributed so that half of them go to the citizens based on their education level, and half are evenly distributed to the commercial building's wealth. A lot of bloody words. So here's how I'm gonna try to break it down. The two things that I'm confident on saying are that a money sink is, they mean money is taken out of general circulation in the game so that Sims and businesses can't spend it on goods, etc. So if the money has been sunk into one of these places, the Sim no longer has it in their pocket to go and buy bread or whatever Sims buy. On the other side, money sources are money being introduced into the circulation that aren't coming from within the circulation already. So anytime rent or imports are paid, that money is kind of like gone into the ether and no one can spend it again because they're calling it a money sink. And also, separately, rent and company profits appear out of the ether and are distributed half to the Sims based on their education level and half to commercial buildings' wealth. So I would assume the rent that just kind of comes out of that magical ether gets distributed to the Sims in general based on their education level. And then company profits that just kind of like appear out of the ether get distributed amongst the companies in the city to be their wealth. Also, the player can spend money on buildings, obviously, just like when you're plunking down a building, it costs whatever, $1 million or whatever. And that comes from the number that we see available at the bottom of the screen in the GUI, not from the Sims' pockets within the simulated economy. So Azark's asking, like, why does it all matter? It's a great question. If I had to like try to come up with an answer, I would think it would only really matter if you are the type of player who wants to like super duper understand where every little cent is coming from. And maybe you're looking at the economy panel and like maybe something isn't quote adding up. It's probably not adding up because it's probably gone into one of these money sinks or come from this money source that isn't necessarily displayed in the panel. Does that mean the money has a value cap, as in your available money for a country is 8 trillion, your city's worth 300 million, and that 300 million circulates and dumps in the greater economy? I have no fucking idea. No idea. Yeah. Azork does bring up the good point of why does it matter? And I think that's maybe a theme of this dev diary, because they do say a couple times within it, they do say like, here's this dump of information, but we don't want you to have to get into the finite details if you don't want to. So they're like providing the keeners like JJ the finite details, but they're also telling you don't stress about it too much. Because I think if they didn't give us these details, I think the keeners, the kind of angry, obnoxious keeners, would be a little upset, right? I think some people out there somewhere are going to want this sort of thing. I think. I'm going to move on. That's how I understand that. I think they're just trying to explain where money comes from and goes to when it's not being circulated within the simulated economy of like Sim has money that got from job and goes to spend on gas. I think. YouTube, let me know what you think. So here is where I mentioned that they show you what the government subsidy looks like. So it's just in your budget panel. It's just in your budget panel. And this is pretty interesting because New Dollarton here has 112,000 people in the city, but it wasn't made to be a economically solid city. So as of this screenshot, it's only making $77 an hour, which is very, very little, right? Like you would normally see that in probably 5 digits, 4 or 5 digits. So it does have over $1 million being brought in via government subsidies. And I wonder if that's because it's not doing so well monetarily, even though it's huge. Because somewhere later on, it does explain that the subsidy amount is based on your population and how well you're doing flushly with money. So I don't know, a very large city population wise, but very not large city money income wise. So I don't know what that is. So JJ's asking if we have to pay back subsidies, and there is a line for it in the expenses, isn't there? But the number is 0. And if I remember right, nowhere in this dev diary does it talk about paying back the subsidies. I wonder if that's meant for repaying your loan. Like I know it has loan interest down here, but later on we're going to read about the fact that you can manually pay back your loan. Maybe that's what that is. Maybe it's calling the loan a subsidy as well. And if so, it's really confusing wording on their part. But yeah, nowhere do we read. It says a small city with an overall weak financial situation with poor tax revenue and low service fees receives a fair amount of subsidies. Yeah, blah, blah, blah. So I wouldn't guess that would be paying back the subsidy. I would think that would be paying back the loan is my guess, but I might be wrong. I also wrote down that I wonder if some folks may think that this, like having the government subsidy, makes the game easy mode. I promise you it does not. I really think that they've balanced this feature very, very well from like gameplay experience or whatever. Yeah, it looks like they're just making it easy for you, but they're not. It's still pretty challenging. Gun. All right, so we know this paragraph already. It just says that large families want bigger living spaces. Smaller families don't need that. Got it. All right, here we go. Into the lots of reading. I'm just gonna take a sip of water. That's not water, that's tea. Okay. Try this again. Workplace pathfinding considers the education levels of the available jobs and gives a small bonus to jobs that match the employee's education level. Additionally, companies with fewer employees are preferred over companies with only a few open jobs, which ensures a somewhat even distribution of workers. So if a person is looking for somewhere to work, if there is a workplace available that wants the same education level they have, they'll prefer to go there. And if there's a workplace available that has very few employees, they will prefer to go there. Hello, Aurora. The same applies to leisure options and shopping. Citizens want to spend more time enjoying the activities than traveling to them. Households with children want to locate near elementary schools, and all children go to school if the city has any. I don't know if that's the same in CS1, but great, fantastic. It must be, at least elementary school, it must be, right? This paragraph is really neat. Households go shopping when the AI detects that it lacks resources. It then checks the household members and their product preferences and chooses a product based on the preference weights. And it's not saying like the weight of the material, it's saying like the weight of how much this person actually prefers this project or product. Once the product type has been selected, it picks one of the household members who then travels to a shop selling that desired product and makes the purchase. Once the purchase has been made, the product is transmitted to the household's resources. So it's literally person wants thing, person goes buys thing. I've written in a note, I know that I'm just highlighting loads of information here to read, but this really is just a lot of stuff to read and go, okay, yep, this is great to know. With some of this, there's not much to expand on or like deep dive into, but I feel like it's worth reading and making sure that people understand it. So if you are like, hey, what does that mean? Don't hesitate to say so. Yes, for sure, Azwark. Yeah. And like we saw gas stations, people made a big deal about seeing gas stations. So is gasoline, one of those resources that a household will have X amount of, and then if they need more petrol, they say, oh, ting, I need petrol, and then they go and get it. It sounds like it. It sounds like it. All these decisions are made to maximize the household's happiness, and the suitability of the household's apartment is calculated by adding together the pathfinding costs to their various destinations. Free time left after work and travel. Do you hear that, employers? Work and travel to work? Because it's a factor. Money they have left after expenses and the services that match their current needs. If the household can't pay for the rent and upkeep of the apartment, they look for other available apartments which match their ability to pay rent. That same evaluation process goes again, including all the above mentioned points, to find a suitable place and maximize happiness. So it sounds like there's like a happiness check every now and then that the households go through. It calculates based on all of these things we just read about, and if they aren't at a happiness level that they need to be at, they'll try to find a place that will give them that happiness level based on all that other stuff. They also consider moving out of the city, even though it is given a lower probability than finding a home locally. If the household is... Oh, so that sounds like the abandoned buildings mechanic that we're used to from City Skylines 1, just leaving the city. If the household is very poor and unable to find a new apartment and lacks funds to leave the city, they become homeless. What stuck out to me here is the words, and lacks funds to leave the city. This tells us that even the travel cost of exiting the city, if they're trying to find a new house or whatever, is calculated. So CO, Colossal Order, did not relent in details with this housing pathfinding stuff. If that's the case, if they can't afford their home and can't afford to leave the city, they live in the city parks until their living situation changes. Nuts. This is a level of like detail or realism or whatever that I didn't quite expect. I am really curious if we will be able to like look at a park either visually or like click on it with a GUI thing, that and actively see somehow that there are homeless people living there. Really sad shit. But I'm really curious if that's made actively apparent in the video game. Yeah, Jay, it sounds like this paragraph makes it sound like specifically that they do. It sounds like at some predetermined time there is a check that is made on if their happiness level after all of the money that they have to spend is high enough, and that would fluctuate with the economy and land value and all that sort of thing, right? So yeah, it sounds like that's exactly what happens. Yes, Aurora. Yeah, I agree. I agree with that in quite a few places in this dev diary. It sounds like there is quite a bit of like pathfinding and calculating happening. Yeah. I can't answer any questions, Brucey, that are not explicitly stated in a dev diary. So I can't confirm or deny, but I do talk about that a little bit later in the dev diary when they talk about the oil and ore stuff. Yeah. Do we like this? You could have a city that's just too expensive technically. You're doing a lot of balancing. It sounds like you're capable of doing a lot of balancing, but they do also say in quite a few places that the game tries to balance itself. So yeah. Yeah. And yeah, this is a screenshot that isn't super informative. It just shows you the high rent sign. But with in-game mods, Jay, yeah, like base game mods. Like in CS1, the unlimited oil and ore is part of the game that they offer you. Turning it on disables achievements, yes, but it's still like part of the game. Moving to industrial companies. I forget where I bring out my flowchart. I don't think it's here quite yet. No, yeah, not a mod. So the 4 like options or whatever that come in the base game in CS1 is unlimited soil, unlimited oil and ore, unlimited money, and unlock all. Those are all part of the base, like the actual game. Taking them does turn off achievements, but it's still part of the game. Yeah. Okay, industrial companies. And that's in CS1, not CS2. We don't know about CS2 totally yet. Industrial companies want optimal access to resources, places to ship their products, and workers to keep production going. They consider the value of production at the site as they choose where to found the company. That sentence is easier to understand if you read it backwards. So when an industrial company is choosing where to locate themselves, they consider the value of production at the possible locations. The size of the property is relevant to the profit calculation, as larger industrial buildings have higher rents. I'm going to touch on that in a second. Land value also affects the rents. So industrial companies prefer areas with low land value to maximize profits. So note to self, figure out how to drastically lower land value to min-max profits. However, different types of production require different amounts of space. So some heavy industry companies set up shop in larger buildings regardless of the cost. So those 2 sentences I think should be read together. So the size of the property is relevant to the profit calculation because the bigger the property, the higher the rent. So you would think, okay, I'm just going to zone smaller industry squares by like manually zoning them 2 by 2 or whatever, right? Because that sounds like a solution there. But different types of production require different amounts of space. So some of the heavier industry companies have to have large buildings. So they use large buildings regardless of the cost. So it sounds like you cannot just zone little small things. Margaret, hello, I hope that you are well. Dear, hey buddy. So industry doesn't inherently lower land values. I would suspect that it does, Azuark. You would think, because assuming it produces pollution, the pollution probably lowers the land value. But there's probably like a balance there somehow, because then it just keeps making its own rent go down. Please witness the confusion, but it must, right? Like it must. You would think it must. Dear, you gotta stop getting these like hacked Pokemon. If you're gonna do the sidestepping of Pokemon purchasing, just do it through an emulator is my suggestion. Renash, hello. Matt, hello. I'm gonna keep going, gang. Companies order resources used to manufacture products, and when they estimate the suitability of a location for the business, so again, when they're choosing where to set up shop, they take into account the transportation costs, which are deducted from their profit. So he sets up shop here, the company does. It has to order stuff from over there, so it calculates how much that's going to cost him. And if he can get somewhere closer where he's going to have to order his products from, he'll try to get closer there because that'll cost less. The new companies have a slightly higher preference for resources that are not in use in the city yet. Either they're produced there but exported without further refining, or they are only available from outside connections. Transport cost is calculated by the distance and weight of the resource. For example, metals weigh more than textiles. Got it. So new companies having a higher preference for resources that are not in the city yet when choosing what type of company to pop up. Maybe that makes the specialization of your city, because that's something that we've heard about. Maybe that makes it a little bit more difficult to like force pinpointedly. I still don't fully understand the specialization thing. Having weight be a factor in the transportation costs is something that obviously makes sense, because yes, heavier things are going to cost you more to transport. But I think it's like a level of detail that Colossal Order didn't have to go to. As we go on into these dev diaries, I feel like it's becoming more seemingly apparent where the focus was with CS2. I think management, mechanics, and simulation are at least being advertised as like heavily focused on in the sequel, right? Rather than looks, beautification, and detailing. When you compare seeing this dev diary being a very, very thick 18 pages about the economy, and was it just last week we did like maps and themes, and it felt, and seasons, and it felt kind of like, I'm gonna say it felt a little lackluster, right? The focus really feels like it's on the management side of things rather than the beautiful kind of things. Ooh, Aurora brings up a really good point of asking, like just thinking about if all of this stuff is what actually made it into the game, what got cut on the cutting floor. That's a really fun idea. If they ever do like an AMA or something on Reddit or wherever those happen, that's a really good question for that. Because yeah, now you've got me curious. I agree, Anna. And if they hadn't kept saying in this dev diary that they are trying to make it self-balance and trying to make it approachable for new players, I would be like incredibly worried about that. I'm a little bit less worried because they keep at least telling us that they're trying to make it approachable for new players. It's still thick, but I'm slightly less worried. Slightly less worried. Yeah, Margaret, right? Hey, Oogs. Hello, good day. Hello, good day. Yeah, I mean, I get what you're saying, Oogs, but I don't think that modders should be relied on. Like, some of us prefer to play a game without mods. So, okay, I'm gonna keep going. Similar to resources, the distances to the industrial company's customers, resellers in commercial areas, which we'll see in the flowchart, and other manufacturing companies affect the company's profit. Sure, companies favor short transportation distances when making resource orders to avoid transportation costs, reducing the profit margin, which makes companies farther away less likely to be selected as a resource provider. That makes sense. So basically, when company is buying or selling things, it wants to transport it the least distance possible. Save money. Got it. Is this a TLDR? Nope. Okay, we are at page 6 of 18. Once we finish this, we are a third of the way through. Kind of. When the company is looking for workers, so this is when the company is trying to figure out who to employ, the complexity level of the production is taken into account as it affects the requirements for the employee education levels. Some companies function well with employees with lower education levels, while others require adequately educated workers to increase their efficiency, which in turn affects their production speed and profit margin. Got it. Got it. Hey, Shilks, I don't necessarily disagree about what you're saying. Hey, Jay! Jay, thank you for gifting a sub to Shilks. Shilks, make sure you refresh and enjoy all the good stuff. I hope that you're well. If we did not have the dev diary about the like pathfinding already that explained that it's not directly based on distance, I would be a lot more worried about it. But because we've had that dev diary, I'm not super personally. So what have I written down here? So neat. It sounds like this is all automatic. We won't be directly able to say, I want companies that hire highly educated people, which I think that's a good thing. There's already a heck of a lot to wrap our heads around. I don't need, this isn't one of the things that I want to have added to that, you know? Yeah, but even though it's still within the city, there is, like, the city can be bloody huge, like ginormous. And the city can be disconnected. So if you choose to purchase tiles over here and then like don't buy the tiles in the middle, and you buy the tiles over here and they have to like take this highway all the way around to get into this one, I think the travel distance / time can still really add up. All right, as the company's profit increases, they are able to invest more into the building upkeep alongside paying the rent, which slowly increases the building's level and the surrounding land value. Company level and efficiency also affect the production rate. This means as the level and efficiency of the company increase, they can produce more with the same amount of expenses, which is water and electricity, thus lowering the price of the produced unit. With a lot of these mechanics, it sounds like things generally get more expensive over time. I think I mean less expensive over time there. So things generally get less expensive over time, which feels like the earlier stages of a city will be the most difficult money-wise, which kind of tracks with my experience. Oh, I say it right there. This totally vibes with my experience playing. If we can just get through the like early mid-city money hump, we'll land on the other side with a more lucrative money state that you can finesse with. Because yeah, a lot of the things that we're reading say that like as these buildings level up, their profit margin increases because they're paying less for XYZ. Exactly, Margaret. Yeah. 100%. And like a real city and similar to CS1. Yeah. Industrial companies occasionally evaluate their current production. They seek to maximize their income by finding the optimal number of employees given the current prices for resources bought and products sold, employee wages, transportation costs, and fixed costs, which is rent and upkeep. They do this by adjusting the scale of their production. If there is more demand for the products the company makes, they scale up production and hire more workers. If the demand for the product decreases for whatever reason, they scale the production down and let go of some of the workers in order to stay profitable. Too real, bro, but on bracket, I get it, and I like that is in the game. I've been trying to think about reasons why a industry building would have to scale up or down their production. And I guess it could be something as simple as a player like deleting a whole bunch of commercial buildings for some reason, right? Then the industry buildings that were providing whatever product that commercial building sold now have to kind of scale things back, lay off a bunch of workers, so it has consequences leading a bunch of commercial stuff. Or yeah, more of the same industry moving in, competitors. Ooh, okay, hold on. Let me like wrap my brain around that for a second. So industry A is making, I'm going to say cardboard boxes. So, oh yeah, if another industry boy comes in and is also making cardboard boxes, suddenly the commercial guys aren't buying as much from industry A. Yes, of course. Yeah, absolutely. Oh yeah, you're the Aswark coworker. I couldn't coworker. Yeah, I couldn't figure out where I recognized your name from. Yes, yes, yes. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, that makes sense. If the financial, oh, and then somebody said homelessness, dear. So yeah, let's follow this path through, right? So you, the player, have a city, let's say that's just like equally and well established, right? Things are established, it's all vibe and it's all doing its thing. And then because you like to redesign cities, because I certainly do, you delete like 3/4 of your commercial buildings because you're going to put them over there instead. Well, now the people that worked in those commercial buildings are out of jobs, and the factories that supplied the goods for those commercial buildings are scaling down probably fairly drastically, so they're booting workers as well. Now you've got a bunch of Sims that are unemployed, and they're all trying to find other jobs. God, this is so realistic. They're all trying to find other jobs, but they can't because so many of them were booted at the same time. And then they can't pay their rent, and they can't afford to leave the city, maybe? And so they go and live in your parks. Holy shit. Hanny, welcome. I hope that you are well. Yeah. Yeah, Shilks. That's a point too. That's a point. Aurora, so Aurora's asking if I have noticed these things. Yes and no. I have noticed buildings abandoning. And I have noticed demand getting odd. But I think where I have to be really transparent with you guys is I don't know. Like when I've been playing the game, I haven't had these dev diaries to learn the information from. There is information in the game, but it's I don't feel like it is this in depth. So I haven't been confident in what I'm doing that's causing what. So I think looking back on it, I've noticed some of it, but that's my answer. That is my answer. Okay, I'm gonna keep reading. If the financial situation of the company decreases due to not making enough profit, they cannot pay for the rent and upkeep of the building, nor can they order resources for production. In this case, the expected company income and wealth become negative, resulting in the company going bankrupt and becoming abandoned. So that is the abandonment mechanic. I think that's pretty straightforward. Yeah, Brucey boy, I've been playing it since like early June, and I'm not used to it. Now, again, another point of being transparent with you guys is I have not been playing it very much. I wish I have been playing it more, but I haven't. I've been busy trying to like keep my rent paid so that I don't have to be scaled down. So, all right, let's read. This is not a TLDR. Okay. Some of the industrial zone buildings are warehouses that don't produce anything by themselves, but are part of the resource trading. When resources are brought from outside connections, they are transported to the warehouses where they are stored until further usage. As mentioned earlier, the price of the order consists of the transport cost, the price of the resource, and companies can trade with both warehouses that are already in your city and outside connections. Warehouses attempt to stay well-stocked and balanced by moving resources around in the city, evenly distributing among the warehouses. So my understanding of this is that it sounds like the growable warehouses in City Skylines 2 basically function completely like warehouses in CS1, set to balanced. And they just, but the difference is in CS2, they grow in automatically. We don't micromanagely place them and set them to full or empty or balanced. I personally think I really like this change. I like that the game just recognizes how it balances, how it needs to balance itself, and does so. I think that's a positive change. Yeah, yeah. They didn't add like having to plunk them in manually in the Industries DLC. Didn't add any sort of real boon for me. I wasn't like, I'm so excited to place warehouses. Yeah, exactly. In addition to zoned warehouses, many of the cargo transportation buildings function as warehouses as well. This is something we're going to need to remember, I think. As these warehouses have special connections to the outside world, their transportation costs differ from the usual truck traffic. And we're going to learn how. Yeah, Azwark. And I think that that I think was a bug for the longest time. I think that was not like at least completely functioning as intended. Um, so I'm hoping that that is something that is worked better into CS2. Cargo trains and ships have large capacities, like for their warehouse ability, which lowers the prices of even the heaviest of resources. And air cargo can carry resources to and from with very little difference in transportation costs. To or from anywhere, sorry, with very little difference in transportation costs. I feel like this is something that we really should remember, which naturally means I'm going to forget it the second I scroll down. But I think that this is going to be something that we can keep in our brains as we are deciding where and when to place cargo trains, ships, and air. Yeah, so it says in this picture, it says unoccupied buildings have no signs to display until a company moves in. So the way that I'm going to kind of guess in a with knowledge behind it way is, let's say you have industry demand, right? So you see on your little GUI at the bottom, you see the orange bar or whatever it is that you need industry. So you zone a bunch of industry. And so buildings start to grow in, and they grow in like this, and that industry starts to be like, the demand starts to be satisfied because you have the building existing. But the building exists, but there's no company that is occupying it yet. So it has those kind of like blank generic signs. And then all of the things that we read up here about how a company decides where to move in, that whole process gets calculated, and then eventually it's decided, okay, this specific building is close to XYZ, and therefore company Charlie is going to move in there. I believe. I believe. Yeah, and just now we're getting to commercial company. Yes. Yeah, I don't know if like abandoned is the right word. I would just say like it empty, right? Unoccupied. Unoccupied is the word that they're using. Unoccupied buildings have no signs to display until a company figures out what kind of company's gonna live there and then moves in there. Okay, I'm gonna have a sip of tea. I would not be surprised, Margaret. Groob, hello. We are reading a very thick dev diary for City Skylines 2, all about economy. So this is Economics 102, I guess. Since there's large and small industries wanting building, does that impact the buildings that grow in zoning? I think If you were to zone like little squares only, so if you forced small zoning, obviously only small boys can zone there, right? So maybe that is a way that you can kind of force which types of buildings come in. But I imagine most of us are gonna like fill zone, right? So it'll zone a large hunk of it. And I suspect the game is programmed to see how much space is available and decide, okay, it is best for me either to put 2 very large buildings here, or it's best for me to put 1 large building and 4 small. That's how I kind of understand it being. I don't think I can answer that, Bruce. I'm so sorry, my friend. Yeah, shilks. Yeah. And hopefully it kind of feels like you sort of can a little bit. But Azark raises a great point. Azark raises a really great. Groob, I hope your weekend was well. I'm gonna try to keep going. Commercial companies need products to sell, workers to service the customers, and to be located close to the residential areas which provide the bulk of the customers. Commercial companies order products from manufacturing companies in industrial areas, as well as from outside connections. Similar to industrial companies, commercial companies take transportation cost into account when they evaluate suitable locations in the city, as the transportation costs eat into the profits that the company generates. Got it. They try to balance good connections to product manufacturers and customers while they also react to the demand for different products. As an example, if a neighborhood doesn't have a grocery store and the customers have high transportation costs to reach the closest grocery store, the simulation marks the neighborhood's close surrounding as lucrative areas for the grocery stores to appear. Makes total sense. I love that these sorts of decisions are being made by the game. I think this is part of what Colossal Order means when they say that they've added complexity. Like there's all of these different types of products now. But it's not overcomplicated for us players because we don't have to ensure X amount of food commerce is growing in and Y amount of gas stations is growing in and Z amount of video game stores are growing in. We can impact these things by taxing them more or less and educating our Sims more or less, but the game does its best to balance it all for us. There's 2 S's in dessert because you want to eat more of it. G Money, I think we see, what page is this? This is 7. I think we see something that's at least relevant here. So we don't necessarily see like the types of commercial building, but we do see in the production tab the products that exist. But different products, I think, can be sold at like a movie store versus a video game store versus whatever. I think. No, you're good. You're totally good, G-Money. Yeah, Bruce. I know what you're saying. Complexity. I'm sorry, my dog's going nuts. I think the complexity, the way that I describe the complexity is that rather than in CS1, I'm really simplifying things here, but rather in CS1, blue demand meant commercial was needed and commercial buildings just provided commerce. Whereas in CS2, blue demand does mean commercial demand, yes, but within commercial and industry and office, there's all of these different products that exist. And there's like a whole production chain for all of these different types of products. And some of them do different things in the product chain. And they can be sold in the commercial buildings, but they're sold as a resource, as a product, rather than just like commerce exists and the sim visits the commerce. So that's the complexity. But what is not complicated about it is, despite the fact that all of these resources and products exist, we don't have to specifically decide this commercial building is selling grocery store. The game decides that for us because the game figures out this neighborhood doesn't have a grocery store yet, so I'm gonna throw one in after they've zoned the commercial. No one's behaving. No, they're going wild. They're going nuts. Have I read this yet? No. Commercial companies look for a customer service workforce, so employees, in the same way that industrial and offices do. Citizens who live nearby and who are of a suitable education level are the best option, yes. Often, the customers and workers come from the same areas, which means that commercial companies thrive near residential areas in general. So that last sentence is the most important one to understand as like an actual gameplay perspective. Commercial buildings love being near residential places. Do we decide where they sell? I don't know what you mean. Azark, point. Great point. Great point. Commercial companies also react to changes in the economy and adjust their service accordingly by scaling their service level up or down. So I've read this gosh darn PDF. Genuinely, I'm not exaggerating. I've read it like a dozen times. So I think I typed as I was understanding here. So I was originally saying, what do they mean by this sentence? Surely service level doesn't mean building level, right? And then on like my fourth read through, oh, does this mean that they hire/fire employees as needed? Yes. Service level would mean the efficiency of money being put into the product, money being put into making the product versus money gotten out of that product. So it's like a call center, like a service level is profit. Basically, the efficiency of the profit. The service level is, oh my God, how do I say these words? I wish Gunt were here. He could just put it in a way that would make sense. Service level is how much of the product they are selling out to the consumers so that they can better balance it versus how much of the product they can afford. It's that whole thing. High techs. Okay. Customer service. Yeah, but it's not like they give their customers better or worse service. Or maybe that is the way that you explain it. So what kind of, let's go with a grocery store as the example, because we know that it exists per the dev diary. So a grocery store. How does a grocery store heighten or lower its service level? They can serve more customers in a given time frame. Yo, that makes sense. So in the grocery store example, okay, I gotcha. In the grocery store example, let's say the grocery store, the economy is going down, and the grocery store has less money to work with for whatever reason. So them lowering their service level means that they are allowing fewer people into the grocery store and or selling less food because they can't afford to buy all of that food and or can't afford to employ all of the employees that would be required to let that many people into the store. Downsizing. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you for letting me kind of work that out with you. As commercial companies level up, their efficiency increases, which in turn improves their service level and sales. Got it. As the sales increase, the individual products become cheaper. This affects the decision-making process of the citizens when they evaluate where to buy the products they need and simulates the real world where cheaper products attract more customers. Once again, too real. To heck with the Walmarts of the world. Boo! But again, I get it, and I agree with that, like being part of the game or whatever. Cool. fewer sales means a production deficit. Right, because in the grocery store example, grocery store is selling fewer products, which means that they are ordering fewer products from industry guy who's making the grocery store food, whatever. So industry guy is getting less demand, which means he's going to start downsizing as well. So yeah, it all kind of wraps around to be very similar to how that all works in the real world. Except in the real world, the fecking grocery store companies are making record profits through COVID and the economic downturn because they suck. Anyways, okay. Let's move on to offices, shall we? Office companies function in much the same way as industrial manufacturing companies. Their production uses electronics or software as the input resources, and their products that they send out are software, telecom, banking, and media. So they take in electronics and software, and offices put out also software, telecom, banking, and media. Yes. Yeah, Margaret. Yeah. While good transportation connections are beneficial for offices, they're not as reliant on short transportation distances since the resource they require is lightweight. So electronics are lightweight and cheap to transport. The immaterial goods that they produce are sold wirelessly to manufacturing companies, other offices, and customers. So software, telecom, banking, and media are immaterial. So they're sold through the internet or whatever to manufacturing companies, other offices, and customers. So they don't require physical access to their customers, and it doesn't weigh in on their decision making while evaluating suitable locations for funding the company. Thus, it is more important to be close to the residential areas where the workforce lives. Another tidbit that I absolutely will forget, but probably should remember. Heck, because I definitely have not been like trying to put my offices near my residential. I think I've been putting my offices mostly near industry to kind of have like that usual buffer that we do in City Skylines 1. So I could be reevaluating. Highlight in a different color to remember better. I wish it was that easy for me. But we'll see. Offices require employees similar to industrial companies, of course. The employees are the engine behind production. Once again, employers of the world, I ask that you please hear this. The employees are the engine behind production. Please, I beg you. And it is important that the companies find suitable employees to fill the roles and keep the company efficiency high. The complexity level of the produced goods dictates the distribution of the education level requirements in the company. So depending on how complex what they're making is, will dictate how highly educated their workers need to be. Aurora. Yes, exactly, Renash. In CS1, I used Office for that same purpose, to be the buffer of noise pollution and a little bit the buffer of like actual ground pollution as well, right? Right? I love that that's a mechanic. Large office buildings can employ hundreds of employees. I suspect that many people will be happy to hear this sentence because I recall on like Reddit and wherever, I recall seeing a lot of people wanting these like high density skyscraper buildings to house or employ many, many people, because that's what happens in the real world. The real world. So we're almost there. The evaluation of profitability and survivability for office companies is the same as other businesses. They scale the production depending on the economic situation. They're always maximizing income by hiring more employees or letting them go. If their profit decreases and they're not able to bounce back after adjusting the production scale, they cannot pay the required rent, upkeep, and resource costs, and they'll go bankrupt. So that's the same as everybody else. Oh, Shilks brings up a great point. When we consider like the skyscraper office buildings during rush hour, like when everybody's done work, it'll be just like working downtown Toronto and getting out of your giant skyscraper boy and heading home. For sure. For sure, for sure. Yes, Azork. Yes. Yes. And also relates back to our map size argument. In CS1, to get hundreds of employees, of people employed, you would have had to zone a large amount of offices, whereas it's telling us that the large office buildings in CS2, one building will do that. So, Margaret. Okay, all right. I'm gonna have another sip of tea. YouTube, if you've made it this far, we're an hour in. Let me know how you're feeling. Give me a vibe check. Do we have the smoothest vibes here on youtube.com/@toad2? Also, please subscribe. Gosh golly. Gosh golly. Okay. The production chain is designed so that you do not have to micromanage. But if you so wish, you can really delve deep into the intricacies of what makes up the whole system. Oh, nice, Margaret Ann. That's awesome. Espen! Thank you. Thank you for gifting a sub out. Pipstar, I hope you enjoy if you're here. Thanks, Espen. That's really, really kind. I owe you guys a lot of Pokemon. I do. So this is another time, as mentioned in this dev diary, where they're telling us, hey, this is really complicated and you can love that complicatedness and min-max and deep dive and whatever, but you don't have to. So cool. It gives me hope. It gives me hope for folks who have been saying like they're a little bit put off by how deep it all feels so far. Starting from extracting the raw materials all the way up to specializing the industry in the city, you can influence any step of the process. I noticed that they used the word influence rather than the word control. I wouldn't be surprised if this was like very specifically chosen. And I think it's a smart distinction both in communicating here, but also smart, also in the actual gameplay. So we can influence what happens with all of these things, but we can't 100% like control what happens in all of these things, which means that we will do XYZ things that the game allows us to do, but in the background, the game is still trying to balance itself. Great. Having companies that produce the same resource gives a specialization bonus to those companies' efficiency. Bruh, I still need to understand this specialization stuff better. We will get to that. All right. Extracting. To get raw materials into the city, you have to either produce them locally with a specialized industry area or import them. Having good cargo transportation connections will make it easier to import them, but extracting them locally will also provide income to the city in the form of company paying taxes on their profit. Great. To create an extraction area, you will need to use the specialized industry area tool, which is activated when you place a specialized industry hub building. This sentence sounds very complicated. It's not. It's not complicated. This tool works similarly to the districts tool that we covered in city services, letting you define the area by placing corner nodes that create a full loop. This like node-based tool that they give you to draw out these areas, it took me a second to get used to it, but it's already second nature. So yeah, good call from the devs there. It's very, very intuitive. A small area is already created when the building is placed. Now that information I didn't fully understand, actually, until literally just this moment. Cool. Cool. Dear, oh man, so dear, you look at this picture. You look at this and tell me if you think it's 4 nodes. Yeah, I'm trying to decide if I'm able to answer that question or not. When they showed us painting the districts, they showed us specifically like choosing more than 4 nodes, and they have stated right here that it works similarly to the district tool. There's my answer for you. Yeah, a lot of people don't like the paintbrush tool. And you know, when I was first using this like little node tool doober, I actually was originally feeling pretty boomerish about it. I was like, no, I want that paint tool back. But to me, they're both fine. I'm not passionate about wanting either the paint tool or the node tool. They're both totally fine. Both totally fine. Okay, you can expand it to cover more land, but the area must be within range of the building itself. So there's a range around the building that you can choose to do this in, which will automatically harvest resources from the area. If the area is producing more of the resources than the city needs, they will be automatically sold to outside connections. Having good cargo transportation options will greatly improve the overall traffic flow of the city, as well as reduce transportation costs for the company. I think that's all pretty makes sense, right? I don't love people using the term OCD when they don't mean actually OCD. If we could avoid that, that would be great. Actual obsessive compulsive disorder is like extremely debilitating to people's lives who have it, and they don't gain any satisfaction from acting out their routines that they have. So we're gonna not do that. So one farm can handle more land than in CS1. It's not a fixed size. It's not a fixed size. Yeah, you choose how big or small to do it. And we're gonna learn that choosing how big or small to do it is like an actual choice. Because my gut is to just go big all the time, use all the resources available. But we're gonna learn that there are reasons not to do that. I'm just gonna have a wee sip of water. Yeah. It's all right. We won't harp, but it's, you know, it's something that we actively try to like do better with here. Oh. Yeah, stay hydrated. Yeah, have a sip of water, gang. All right. It is beneficial for the city when resource production and consumption are balanced. Another piece of information that I think we definitely need to remember. I am absolutely overproducing goods by habit. Like I said, I'm just drawing, you know, as much as possible kind of thing. And that's probably actually not great for my dollar bills in the game for reasons that we're going to learn in this blue. Overproduction of resources is not beneficial for the city or the companies. When there is a large surplus of a resource, the companies will export that resource to outside connections. Makes sense. However, when the companies sell to the outside connection, they also pay for that transportation cost. Also makes sense. The more of the resource that is transported, the larger the transportation costs become, because they are required to be transported further and further away from the city, and these costs are deducted from the company's profit margin. So company A, Farm Boy A, is right here. And let's say he needs to export goods outside of the city. First, he's gonna sell to this close outside the city, and he's just gonna pay that transportation cost. But then this little guy doesn't want to buy his farm stuff anymore because he's already got enough of it. So now he's going to have to go a little bit further and pay this transport cost. But then this guy doesn't want farming stuff either. So then he's got to go a little bit further and pay this transportation cost. So it sounds like starting with smaller extraction facilities is the way to go. Yeah, I don't know, linear or quadratic. I'm a language major. Which is funny for so many reasons. It doesn't matter. But yeah, that's that kind of basic understanding is gonna be what you know. Yeah, also what Grub is saying, assuming that the sale of the surplus resources isn't enough to cover the transportation costs. Yeah, maybe at some point the transportation cost will be so large that there is no point in selling the product because it won't cover itself, sort of thing. A large deficit in resource production causes the companies to order resources from outside connections. This incurs additional transportation costs and causes traffic, which can hinder physical transportation of the resources. Got it. These transportation costs are also deducted. Good. So this mechanic feels like a way to balance how we kind of currently use the Industries DLC in City Skylines 1 as basically an overpowered money source. I feel like the devs were extremely attentive to money balancing in it's feeling like all areas of the game to make it challenging but not overwhelming. This being an example of keeping it challenging. You can't just overproduce and sell specialized goods forever to earn the big money like the Industries DLC in City Skylines 1 does. Yeah, Groob. Right. Right, Margaret Ann. Yeah, point. Industry goes burr, no more. It's true. It sounds like exporting goods isn't affected by the outside demand for that good. Exporting something worth a lot wouldn't offset the cost of transporting. Yeah. I don't know. But point. Point. Okay. All right. Okay. So my two, I'm going to read these out loud, but my two pop-up points here say that it is time for a flowchart. But I'm going to read them out loud first for people who that helps. So the zoned industry, I'm going to have water first because I'm hacky. The zoned industry requires resources that can either be imported from the outside connections or gained from the specialized industry area within the city. Using these resources, the industrial companies process them further into material goods. These material goods can then be sold to other manufacturing companies for further processing, or exported to outside connections, or sold to commercial companies. Additionally, the offices function as manufacturing companies, but instead of producing material goods, they produce immaterial goods. Offices require more educated workers and immaterial goods, which are either produced by other office companies or imported from outside connections. So what they've just described is the reason why in CS1, offices and industry both satisfy the industry demand. Jones, if you're here when we boot up City Skylines, don't let me forget that. Jones has the mansion. So industry, zoned industry, takes the stuff from the specialized industry, and then it turns it into products. At the end of the production chain, all of the resources, all of the produced resources and goods find their way to the end customers, whether they are households in your city or outside connections. Thus, commercial companies are at the very end of the production chain. They turn the goods they purchase into products that the households then buy to fill their resource and leisure demand. Okay. All right. Let's get this thing going. Here we go. Oh, I'm kind of in the way. I'm kind of in the way. All right. All right. All right. Whoop. So this is my flowchart, Aurora. This is my flowchart. Yeah. It needs more red yarn. So okay. So the start of the production chain is generally either the specialized industry, which is the one where you place the building and then you do that like node-based decision of how big it is, right? So it's either starts there or it starts from an outside connection. And one of those two things will give you that initial chunk of resources that you need to keep going. Shucks. So from there, your good will go to either a zoned industry, which is different than your specialized industry. Your zoned industry is the one where you see the demand bar at the bottom of your GUI, hey, works, and you zone orange industry, buildings grow in and they satisfy that stuff. That's what they mean by that. Or your zoned office, which is you see the purple demand on your little GUI bar, you zone some purple, and then they grow in. So the industry or the office takes your raw stuff and it starts turning it into other stuff. And that other stuff can be a whack of things. Sometimes, I think it's easiest to say first, if they can't, like if they don't send it somewhere else, they'll just sell it to outside cities. So they'll take that, they'll just transform the good once, and then they'll sell it to an outside city. So that's what this is right here. So zoned industry can just transform the product once, sell it to the outside city, or the zoned office can just take the product once, transform it once, and sell it to the outside city. Cool? Cool. Then we're gonna keep on the simple train, okay? So selling it to the outside city is the simplest version of this. And the probably next thing that's a little bit more complicated that they can do is the zoned industry or the zoned office can take the raw resource, they can transform it once, and they can sell it to a commercial building, which is your zoned commercial, which is the blue bar up at the bottom GUI. You zone the blue and they grow in, because the commercial will buy that product that has been transformed once, and they will in turn sell it to consumers, which is your people, which is your Sims. They will sell it to them either exactly as they bought it, or, yeah, you know what, Azark, I think you can, and I think I just didn't put that in here, so we're just gonna hold on a second, okay? So the Sims will either buy it as it is, or sometimes it mentions that the commercial buildings will also like transform the product once. I think an example that they give is they take the product that's known as food, or they take the product that's known as something, we'll see it, and they turn it into beverages. And then that commercial building is probably a bar, and then you see the Sim go to the bar and get drunk and go home. So that's what that arrow is. Let's see. Hold on. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know if it says, it's fine. Okay. Or, not enough customers is probably a thing, because people can't afford the food, they won't buy it, or the people. So not enough customers would still be a thing, you would think, because let's picture you've got two different commercial areas. One commercial area that's close to the households is going to get all the customers, because the people are going to prefer to go there because it costs them less to go there. Whereas if you also have commercial way back here, far away from where anybody lives, they're probably going to have not enough customers because people would rather come here than go here, right? Where else can we keep going with this? So, zoned industry can all I know. Zoned industry can also send the thing that they took and transformed to a different zoned industry building. And then that zoned industry building, that second zoned industry building, can basically do everything again. It can still send it to the outside connections. It can still send it to the commerce. It can send it to offices. I haven't drawn enough arrows because, like, guys, I'm not a flowchart maker. I didn't bust out the old PowerPoint presentation for this. Fuss budget. Sure. No, that's great. That's great. The zoned industry can also send their item that they transformed once or twice, and they can send it to the office as electronics. We saw the offices can take the electronics, which is a physical good, which is a material good, and they can send that, transform it, and they can send that to commercial, they can send that to the outside connections, or as software. If an office turns something into software, they can send it bloody everywhere. They can send it back to the industry, because the industry will use software to, like, make their production less expensive. They get a better computer program to do the things that they want to do. They updated their AutoCAD. Or they can send that software to offices for the same reason. The office gets a better processing of bloody system to do their stuff. Or they send it to commerce, again for the same reason. Or the offices can turn things into media. What did they say? Media, telecom, or banking, which is then sold to the consumers through commerce. And then the one thing that I didn't understand was, can Sims purchase goods like media, banking, and what was the other thing I just said? I don't know. Telecom. Can they purchase them directly from the offices, or do they have to purchase it through the commerce? Yeah, Aswark. Yeah. When you... So from what I understand, G-Money, all of this is automatic. So, like, we're sitting here and we're trying to wrap our brains around it, right? But we are doing that because we're keeners, because we love to figure this stuff out. And it's just really interesting. But when you're physically playing the video game, really doesn't matter, because you see the zoning at the bottom, like you see the demand for the zones at the bottom of the GUI. You see the bars that are bigger or smaller. You zone according to those bars, and the game understands, okay, I need a secondary office building that does this secondary office processing. And so thankfully she's zoned me some purple, so I'm going to use that purple that she zoned, and I'm going to put in this office building that does the thing. Yeah, travel distance is smart. It does kind of matter because of the travel distance, sure. But even there, you just really need to understand the basics of, like, these of specialized goes to office and industry, which goes to commerce, which goes to households. It does, you're right. It does matter a little bit. I think just having, like, the super deep dive breakdown isn't the most important thing in the world. I am going to pull up Bifa's flowchart, because his is obviously way more detailed than mine. Oh, but you know what? Like, it's almost to a deficit that it's more detailed. Like, I look at this and I go, ugh, you know? Also, youtube.com/@Biffa plays City Skylines. Oh, he changed his name? Wait. Hold on. Or is that a new channel? Biffa plays city. Oh, it's the same channel. All right, it's the same channel. It's the same channel. Guys, go sub to Biffa. He's great. Do the thing. Do the thing. No, he just renamed his main channel because his main channel was Biffa Plays Indie Games. And I do remember a post from him saying like people would rag on him for having it say indie games because he kind of only plays cities, but he's played other things. Like this is Astroneer. I love Astroneer. Yeah, no, it's true, Jay. It's true. Maybe I can try to use this. But yeah, so let me just take a quick look at this because we've got an ad running anyways. So what does he say? Oh, now he does say that telecom, banking, and media go directly to the consumer through the office building. So, I mean, I guess I'll take his word for it. Do we take his word for it? Astroneer, I would call an indie game, at the very least. I don't know. Do we call City Skylines an indie game? I have no idea, dudes. And honestly, like, I kind of don't care. Not in a mean way, but in a, I'm not really fussed about being pedantic about it kind of way. The dude's channel is Biffa Plays Indie Games. That's great. He has content that I like watching, so I'm going to watch it, you know? Like, I'm just not super fussed about it. But yeah, this is what he did. If you want to watch this video, I'm sure it's 7 hours long. Actually, can we see how long his video is on it? It is only 40 minutes? How did this man... How did he do this in 40 minutes? Anyways, it's fine. It's fine. I'm done talking about other creators. Yeah. He's not a language major. A red yarn conspiracy board. Oh no, Aurora, you're right. That is kind of what it looks like, eh? Anyways, I was really proud of this. I did try to draw this flowchart a few dev diaries ago. And when they did the zoning dev diary, I feel like it might have been the 4th one. And then I just stopped because my brain just went, no. And my brain still kind of just went, no. You can see I gave up and like didn't do the question marks and whatever. But anyways, let's keep going. We're an hour and a half into this and we're on page 11 of 18. Oh my God. Oh no. Somebody help. Okay. All right. Okay. Resource production factors. Oh man. So thank you for telling us that these are not directly exposed in the game. All of the so they are literally just telling us this for us to geek out about, which is so cool. I love that. They have, yeah, Leanne, yes. All of the resources have several factors which affect the simulation. A couple of these, so it's like this isn't even everything, apparently, are price, weight, and space. You know, these are also the 3 factors that Gunt takes into consideration that affect our simulation. I tried to make a joke there and it didn't work. It didn't work. So I'm just gonna read these. I have kind of generally nothing to add on to these, but I'm gonna read them aloud and hopefully that'll help people understand. Giant peaches as a product. So, price naturally refers to the actual price of a unit of the resource. The price determines how many units of the resource a household can buy when they restock their household resources, like we learned they do earlier. The price of a resource is constant, so stone will always cost X amount, but the availability of the resource contributes to the transportation costs, which defined the end profit margins. So 1 unit of stone apparently, will always cost X amount of money. So the price for stone is constant. But what changes is whether or not stone is available this close or this close. So costing this much transportation or costing this much. Gotcha? Gotcha. Weight refers to the abstracted physical weight. So that just means the weight that they have chosen for the resource, which affects the resource's transportation cost. Light resources like pharmaceuticals incur a small transport cost, while stone and steel, etc., are heavy and have high transportation costs. Heavy stuff should ideally be produced in the city to avoid high transportation costs, but if it needs to be transported, having a ship or train connection is a good way of reducing those costs, because we learned earlier transporting something via ship or train in large quantities is a heck of a lot less expensive than transporting that same quantity of stuff via multiple trucks that it would take to do so. No, Margaret. Sorry to say the word no. I have to apologize for saying the word no. I am Canadian and a woman. So the price of bread is constant, but it will still cost less or more because that bread had to be transported a larger or shorter distance. Effectively, it's the same thing as saying the bread costs more or less. But the difference that they're trying to say is that this piece of bread is worth $3 no matter its life. It's just a $3 piece of bread, but the money that you're paying is probably that $3 plus either this much transportation for it or this much transportation for it. Can you choose which method of transport each produce will use, or is that back end decided? I would guess the way that you choose it is by having the rail be available or having the air transport be available, right? Because it sounds like the game is always trying to, like, the businesses are always trying to maximize their profits. So they're going to always try to use the least expensive method of travel for them. So if you have a rail connection available, and that's less expensive, I would assume the game is going to choose that rail travel method. Yeah? Yeah. Okay, space affects the profitability of the resources. Some resources require more space for manufacturing than others, and companies that manufacture resources that take up large amount of space prefer to be located in areas where the land value is so low the company can make the most profit. So they've already kind of told us this before. This is that whole one where some industries have to have large buildings, but that large building costs more than a small building. So the way that they can kind of balance that a bit is to have their large building on a lower land value lot. Yeah. Yeah. Ooh, let's go pajama pants. What have I done here? I really need to write this shit down and actually try to use this information while I'm planning out a city. And they give us an example, so I think this can be hopefully fairly helpful. So the example they provide us is a factory that does stuff with minerals. Cool. I'm going to say minerals would be the name of the product. Oh, they're talking about stone. I'm just going to read it. The factory's expenses are mostly dictated by the cost of acquiring its input. So in this case, stone. So the factory has to spend money by acquiring stone. Stone is ubiquitous, which for non-native, anyways, ubiquitous means it's widely available. There's lots of it. So there's lots of stone in the area, easily available, but it's really heavy. So the transport costs are probably a large part of the cost, making the company more likely to choose to live, to grow in near a stone quarry. Additionally, the factory is probably quite large, so it will try to pick a location where the land price is not very high. So you have zoned swaths of orange industry zoning. You've done your drawing of the zone, the painting in of the zone. The game recognizes that your city needs a minerals factory because it said so. So it's choosing which of your zoned industry area to have that factory grow in. It wants to grow in near a quarry because stone is expensive to transport, and it wants to grow in somewhere with poor land value because its building size is going to be really big, which means its rent would be high if it were on a higher land value area. Another large cost comes from paying the wages of the relatively untrained workers the factory uses. The factory also buys some water and a lot of electricity, the prices of which are set by the player. So that's a way that we can impact these things. Lastly, the factory earns money by selling its products to either local electronics or chemical factories or exporting them out of the city. If it has to export, it will also pay the transportation costs and be less profitable because stone is really expensive to transport. Finally, the player will tax whatever profit is left or maybe subsidize the minerals if he wants to have more of it produced in the city. I just realized that they automatically made the player a he. Okay. Everybody got all that? Everybody got all that? I actually feel like I understand that. Dirt. You can subsidize industries, and you do it by giving them a negative tax. And I wonder if that is what that is. There's a screenshot of it. So yeah, we're gonna look at that. Okay. So here's my kind of like reading between the lines thing, right? Providing this example says to me that Colossal Order genuinely cares about wanting us to understand this stuff. I feel like they are recognizing how dense the information that they've provided is and summarizing it in a way that will help people with different ways of understanding and processing information understand it. This paragraph means like a lot to me. This sounds really whatever. It cements that Colossal Order is passionate about this game and wants their player base to understand and therefore enjoy it. So I like that they've given us a detailed and I think as clear as possible example. Okay. Specialized industries, baby. Page 12. Page 12 of 18. So, specialized industry areas typically require natural resources to function. Those natural resources are fertile land, forest, or oil. With the exception of livestock farming and stone quarrying, specialized industry areas can be built on... they've worded this so funny. So livestock and stone don't require a natural resource to exist. Everything else does. Of the natural resources, oil and ore are finite, resulting in less and less resources being extracted. So this is where that question comes back. And we have not seen an option anywhere in the videos that we've seen, and we haven't been like written down an option somewhere. So it does not appear that there is an option to turn on unlimited oil or ore like there was in City Skylines 1. So to me, this says that the devs are keen on players actually having to accommodate for this sort of thing, likely to keep in line with realism. Um, yeah, you guys asking about livestock needing fertile land. I don't know about the real world, because like, but in the video game, it says that livestock farming does not require a natural resource. So, in the life of a city. I mean, yeah, Aurora, because there's like mines up there in Thunder Bay that aren't mined anymore because they've gotten all the stuff out of it. Right? I thought that was a thing. But we do all know that my experience in the real world is very little. So I don't know. Gubby, welcome. I hope you're well. I hope you're well. Apparently you can put your livestock and your stone anywhere. Yes. I didn't know that, Aurora. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. All I really understand is the way that they've done it in the game. And I can't sit here and tell you that they definitely don't have an unlimited oil and ore option. But I can tell you what I've seen presented to us so far. And nothing that I've caught says unlimited oil and ore being available. So it says that oil and ore are finite. However, fertile land and forests replenish their resources over time, but kind of like as the payoff, they're vulnerable to pollution. So if fertile land or forest get polluted, it sounds like that's bad. Yeah, that's fair, Aurora. I don't know if I'm bummed about it yet. Because they do say, how do they phrase it? They say resulting in less and less resources being extracted. I guess let's try to like play it out in our head here. What's the end result of that? So you start a city and you start to mine oil and ore. You probably, if you're trying to be profitable, you probably can do two things with that oil and ore. We know that we can use at least oil for energy. I'm just going to say both because I don't really remember. So you can use them for energy or you can use them to sell, like for stuff, right? So as your city grows, if you play the city for long enough for them actually to deplete completely, if they deplete completely, you have to either import it, which costs money, or you have to switch to alternate energy sources and alternate stuff to sell. I would guess the alternate energy source is probably the easier of the two, right? So you probably do end up doing alternate energy sources. And then if you still want to sell stuff that requires ore and oil, you just have to import it. But we don't know everything to sell that requires ore and oil. Yeah. Yeah, I don't know. It does. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if, and I would argue still a possibility based on like the information that we have. They do say resulting in less and less resources being extracted. So maybe there is an end point where the ore and oil resource, maybe it has like a minimum amount that it outputs. And maybe that minimum amount isn't 0. So maybe it is still worth having it there. I don't know. And I don't think we get that information in this dev diary. Yeah, I see what you're saying, Aurora. And I guess that's just like player style difference, right? Some folks might really enjoy that it evolves over time, and then some folks might not. We're at the end of page 12. We're at the end of page 12. Yeah, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm going to keep going for the sake of time, because we have been recording for 1 hour and 50 minutes. So I think we know which way the gamble's going to go. City Skylines 2 features 9 different specialized industry areas. You can choose between 4 types of farming. So in farming, there is livestock, which you do not need natural resources. And there is grain, vegetable, and cotton, which do need to be on fertile land. Forest requires forests, of course. Stone can be done anywhere on the map. And coal and ore need ore deposits in the ground. So coal and ore require this ore resource, and oil requires the oil resource. Fine. Specialized industries do not affect the industry zoning demand. I need to remember that because I did not know that until reading this dev diary. The economy of the companies in the specialized industry areas function differently as they can't go bankrupt. Instead, they downsize production and the number of employees when profits are down. This can especially happen if the area runs out of the natural resources. I wonder what the decision was here to make them operate differently than bankrupt, but I like the variety in the gameplay. And now that I'm reading it, I actually think that I have seen this in action. I just haven't understood what was happening. No, JJ, I don't think you need oil and ore, if that's what you mean. So if you want to have coal, or if you want to have ore, then those use an ore deposit. But if you want to have oil, that uses an oil deposit, right? Specialized industries. If you want to use them, you can, but you still need general. Yes. Yes. Correct. I would argue from the information given here, that sounds like correct. If you want to use the specialized industries, you can, but they don't affect the demand of the general industry, generic industry. So you have to have generic industry. Yes. Oogly, you could go to youtube.com/toad2 and you watch it all there. Quite customizable. Right. Yeah, RTX, that's actually a really great idea. A good thought. So RTX is saying that maybe one of the reasons they chose the specialized industries not to do the bankruptcy thing is because there's like kind of effort put into zoning them out. And to have to redo that and sort of stuff would be a pain. I could buy that for sure. This last sentence here also, it says that they don't go bankrupt, even if the area runs out of natural resources. So it does say if the area runs out of natural resources. So that makes it sound like you can. But if you can have, let's say, an oil specialized industry area, you have it down and it runs out of oil and it still exists, there's got to be a reason for that, right? So I don't know. Specialized industry vehicles. Specialized industry vehicles are not part of the normal traffic and do not drive on roads, but they still travel on paths created by the simulation when industrial areas are created. These vehicles operate within these specialized industry areas and only and gather resources within that area. Once they gather enough, they drop the resources at the main building, which then processes the resources, then send them to companies for further processing as part of the production chain. So this is a lot of like words that don't impact your gameplay. But I do love like sitting there and watching the little areas operate. I think it was a cool decision to have it work this way, essentially having that part of the production chain out of player control, aside from us assigning the area. I like it. It brings a little bit of like wonder to kind of watch them do their thing. Wonder is a strong word, but it's fun. It's fun just to sit there and have zoned your area of specialized industry, and then you just watch what happens within that area, and the game figures it out. Yeah, you can see, so here's a vehicle. This is farmland of some sort, right? And you can watch this vehicle like drive around is what they're saying. So yeah. Okay. Here is the economy panel. It's a lot. Oh, and there's the subsidies thing that we were wondering about earlier. And so what was brought up is that maybe this subsidies is where we'll see later that you can put your taxes into a negative to subsidize a part of the production chain. And maybe that's what this is. That would I would believe you if you told me that with confidence, right? Okay, from the budget tab, you can take a quick glance at the city's revenue, expenses, and its current monthly balance. Additionally, highlighting each section reveals quick details of each of the revenues or expenses on the right side of the panel. So it basically gives you more information. Thank you for giving us in-game information so that we do not have to have a wiki up on our fourth monitor while we are playing all the time. Loans work a bit differently than in the original City Skylines. Instead of taking one of 3 loans, there's now only 1 loan available, but it's adjustable and it can be either paid back or increased at will. So they're saying if you already took out a loan for X amount of money, you don't have to pay it back necessarily before you take out more money. You can slide it a bit. You can take a loan and determine its size by moving the slider right and left. The loan is finalized by using the accept button. With the same method, you can repay the already existing loan or increase its size to take out even more money. So I think these words maybe make it sound complicated, but it's not. It's very intuitive. From a person who's not a numbers person, and who, like, my eyes gloss over a lot, it's super intuitive. I've seen other games do their loans like this, and I think there's a reason why. It's intuitive and it brings more flexibility to what we're borrowing rather than just 20, 60, or 200K. The loan size has a limit that increases on each milestone, which is a great way to keep the milestones relevant. The interest rate is based on the size of the loan and the loan itself, which de-incentivizes you from just taking out the maximum amount every time, right? And the loan itself is automatically paid back in monthly payments. You can also pay it back manually, either partially or entirely if your city's finances allow for it. The loan interest rate can be reduced by building the city hall and the central bank. And I love that we can influence these things if we want to. So here's the loans tab. You can read it all here. And it tells you all the stuff. So this person is sliding it. They are considering taking a loan of $13 million. They currently have nothing taken out. So if they did take this 13 million cents sim money, they would go from 0 to 13 million, and they would go from a 0% interest rate to a 9.8 interest rate. And it would cost them 1.2 million money every month if they press the accept button. It is weird seeing numbers that big. I totally agree. Oh, and their limit is $26 million at Megalopolis of 112,000 people. Yeah, it does seem more like realistic, right? Like it seems like it makes more sense for sure. Yeah, simoleons, yeah. I just call it monies. Each of the zone types has its own overall tax rate, which can be adjusted with sliders. On top of that, you can adjust the taxes of individual groups by expanding the menu for specific zone type. For residentials, you can adjust it based on education level. I still think this is a little bit of an odd choice. I would much rather tax directly based on wealth. Originally, on learning that it was done by education level, I thought it made sense to place higher taxes on highly educated people because in theory they would be wealthier. But now I wonder if we should actually be taxing less on higher educated people so that you are incentivizing your Sims to go get educated. You can't, yeah, you can't just set a high tax based on wealth. There's no direct way of doing that. Which is something that I don't love, but it is what it is. It is what it is. Games will see it in the picture a little bit below, but you can just adjust your tax based on like residential, commercial, industry, or you can expand them and do it micromanagingly. They have stated that they want you to be able to play without the micromanaging if you would prefer to do that way. I found it more difficult, but I think it'll be possible once the community kind of figures out things like together, you know? For commercial, industrial, and office, you adjust the tax rate you can adjust the tax rate specific to the different product types. And that goes between minus 10%, so subsidizing it, to 30%. Uraki, I'm gonna have to get to you after we're done the dev diary, if you don't have it already figured out. We're reading this and we're trying to get through it. But we can probably address that. Setting negative taxes is a great way to guide the production of different resources to specialize a city in a certain field. I think this is a really cool feature to introduce. And it introduces like the entire concept of subsidizing to people like me who aren't well versed in this shit. Because I would have never, like, I guess I know that it exists, but it's not really part of something that goes through my brain very often. I am literally learning the basics of how this all works through this video game. And as someone who loves to learn, that's pretty pog. So here is the sliders, the tax sliders that they were talking about. So you can see that you could choose to just do, like, you could just take this residential slider and move it up or down so that you are taxing all of your residential areas this amount. Or you could expand it and tax them based on the education levels more specifically, right? And they have stated that it's the same for commercial, industry, and office, but they said when they expand it, instead of seeing education there, you would see the different types of products. I don't think I can answer that question directly, Azuark, but that would make sense to me because you can see here the 5% is the lowest number that's in the range up there, right? And the 7% is the highest number that's in this range up there. So that would make sense to me that that's how that works. Oogs, it says here that higher taxes also slow down residential building level ups as there's less money left for improvement after the expenses are paid. So I think taxing people highly does have an effect, right? Because it takes money out of their wallet that is apparently very simulated, as we've seen, right? From the services tab, you can adjust different city service budgets, which affect the service building's efficiency and in turn, the quality of said services. This budget can range from 50 to 150%. It's just like it was in CS1. No changes for the sake of changes, which I like. I also wonder, and I don't know the answer to this, I wonder if doing like the 101% thing will work the same as it did in CS1. Because in CS1, that was an easy way to get one additional vehicle for very little cost. You just set your service budget to 101%. So for electricity and water sewage, try this again. For electricity and water and sewage, you can also change the service fee, which affects the consumption of the service, but also company efficiency and the happiness of citizens. Por ejemplo, lowering the service fee for electricity will increase electricity consumption because it costs you less money, but it'll also increase the efficiency and the happiness. You get more stuff. I have found these electricity and water fees to be useful early game when money is tight. With these tools, you can fine-tune the service output to match the current demand if you so wish. However, this is important to read. An important design aim of these is that they do not need to be constantly micromanaged. So you don't have to do it if you don't want to. But for the more experienced players, they can provide an additional layer of complexity to the simulation if you want to. Love that for us. Love that for us. Ush. We're on page 17. From the production tab, you can observe each of the materials, material goods, and immaterial goods your city is producing. And from that, you can also observe whether your city's production of the resource is in surplus or deficit. You can highlight each resource to reveal additional information which shows you where the resource can be gained from and whether it can be sold or used. For example, wood can be produced from forestry or it can be imported. Wood is used for heating and can be sold to processing companies or be exported to outside connections. And this is where we see that. So I love that in game, they show us this information for each of those little resources. By introducing all of these little categories types, it could be really obnoxious to go and have to look this stuff up on a wiki or whatever else every single time. But they have found a fairly simple / clean way to have the information be available in game. And this is what that looks like. So they are showing us chemicals. Chemicals is this one. So it's this one here. So they don't show us what each of these are. But you can see that chemicals can either be directly imported from the outside world, or they can be brought in from, I'm going to guess, oil special industry buildings or special industry buildings. And either those would go to a zoned industry building to be processed into chemicals. And then the chemicals can either be directly sold to consumers through a commercial building, or the chemicals can be further processed via another industry zoned building into whatever this is. Water? It looks like a water bottle. I have no idea. Or it can be further processed via another zoned industry building to pills? Or it can be exported directly to the outside world. So they show you a much better version of the flowchart that I made that is specific to each of the types of products or whatever. It does look like pharmaceuticals. It does. Yeah, and that's it. So next week we get Citizen Simulation and Life Path. I suspect that one will probably also be pretty thick. I'm really looking forward to it, and I'm actually incredibly excited for you to see it, because there's stuff that I think would be in there. I genuinely haven't seen it yet, but there's stuff that I think that would be in there that will be very exciting. Well, we still have to watch the video, and we have been 2 hours and 10 minutes. So yeah. So let's watch the video. Let's watch the video. I have it right here. Oh, how do I get you guys this sound on my new setup? Great. Oh, it just comes through automatically. Okay. I'm gonna turn this music off, right?
They say
yeah. Okay, you got it. I'm going to get us speed of 0.75. I'm gonna maybe turn it down a wee bit, and let's bump her up. Now, I will say that I don't think there's, like, information-wise, I don't think there's any new information given in the video that we haven't already read in the dev diary, but we do get to like visually see things, which I think is really nice, right? So
They say money makes the world go round.
yeah,
It's as true
have
in
a sip of
City
water.
Skylines II as it is in our world. Keep your city spinning
Oh, Jay, you
by
can do it now.
steering its economy on a course to prosperity. Your city's economic simulation is modeled on real-world economics. This introduces complexity and nuance to city building without making it complicated.
She's just said once again that it brings us new complexity, but they are aiming not to have it be complicated for you. So nice, Jay. Thank you for paying out the money, the prediction money.
The economic system in City Skylines 2 is actually engineered to help you grow
Oh,
your new
hold on.
city.
Hold on.
Actually engineered
So we've got a whack of taxes. We've already seen this. So there's still nothing in the subsidies field. Okay.
to help you grow.
These are still arranged and they're very familiar numbers to us, right? If you guys have been playing CS1 for a while, you will recognize the tax rates of 11, 12, and 12. So that's very familiar to me.
Your new city, and as it develops, to give you influence over the financial levers that generate wealth. You'll raise revenue by
I agree.
taxing the sale.
I agree, Detsumo, for sure. Oh, yeah, not a great joke, RTX. Not the best. Not the best. So this is the tax screen that we have seen again, but now they have expanded the industry tab. So you could just do your industry all as one, or you could choose to lower certain ones. And so it tells us more, it shows us more of what all of these little products are, right? We have convenience food, we have food, furniture, grain, paper, timber, vegetables, vehicles, electronics, and I would assume there's more. Another thing is you can also see that it looks like the lowest number we have here is 8, and the lowest number we have here is 8, and the highest number. So
Sale of goods and services, energy production, the extraction of raw materials.
This is another example of what landscaping looks like. I know that folks have been wondering kind of what that looks like. And you can see this is one of those specialized areas, right? And you can see it could just kind of like hops up over the landscaping. So that's kind of cool.
Tourism and more.
Sorry to like keep
You'll
pausing and
also
stuff.
tax private incomes.
I
As
do too,
healthy
Jay. There's
economic
so much fun to
activity
sit there
will
and
mean
watch.
Jobs for citizens. With money in your city's coffers, you can invest in city services and infrastructure. Schools.
Wait, what was under the water there?
Invest in city services and
Oh, you can see arrows. That is an underground road, I think. So fun. And then, yeah, that's something to do with power for sure.
infrastructure, schools and universities, and
Yeah,
all the other
games.
engines of urban development. An important aspect of economic growth is balancing supply
Oh,
and
yeah,
demand.
magician. Yeah.
Businesses will do this automatically, exporting their goods when they produce.
So you can click on a truck and you can see right behind me there that it tells you what type of good it is transporting, which I think is cool.
Produce more than the market wants. However, this can hit their bottom line as transport costs can reduce profitability. To keep the rate of production in line with demand, businesses will even fire employees.
Okay, let's pause here. So it says workplace distribution. Oh, the green and yellow and orange on the map is just, are there more workplaces there or are there fewer workplaces there? And then the colors within the graph are their own colors. Got it.
Employees. On the flip side, when products aren't made fast enough to meet local demand, companies in your city will be forced to buy from expensive outside connections. And that can quickly eat into profits too.
Let's look at this too. Okay, I'm in the way here. So we have a whole bunch of these things that we are importing. Food, beverages, food, electronics, petro, textiles, furniture. Yeah. So we're importing. These are the things that we're importing the most. And then these are the things that we are exporting the most. So if you were wanting to potentially use this to help you make more money in your city, you would look at trying to find ways of encouraging convenience food. Actually, so the top 3 of this import is food related. So maybe if I saw this, I would look at trying to place more specialized farming stuff to encourage it being available so factories turn it into these, I guess. Jay, that sounds horrifying.
Taxes can also influence the production rate
We've
of
seen
specific goods. You can slow the rate of production by raising taxes. Lower taxes.
There. You can see it right there. As this person changes the timber taxing, it changes the industry taxing as well. Those icons, will they show what they are if you hover the mouse over it? I can't answer questions that aren't directly answered somewhere else.
Accelerate production rates and lure similar manufacturers to your city. It's also possible to motivate businesses to specialize in ways that strengthen the economy.
I think
Imagine
we
reducing
have
taxes for furniture stores and the various industries that
Wait, I'm
manufacture
just waiting to see if they
their
do
products.
anything better here.
That will make them more profitable.
I think we
More
have been
businesses
told
specializing in the design and manufacture of
Sims
furniture will crop
having
up.
to go to a hospital
Before
after
you
an
know
accident.
It, your city will have a flourishing furniture.
Oh, let me get out of the way here too. So these 2 places are selling furniture because they turned the furniture tax way down.
Will make them more
so there's
profitable.
more furniture being made
specializing in
to
the
be
design
sold.
and manufacture of furniture will crop up.
Oh wait,
Before
hold
you
on, let me
know
get out
it,
here again.
your
But what I'm failing to understand here, game, what I'm failing to understand is they keep talking about specializing in these different products, and it looks like here that there's no indication, maybe other than the efficiency, but there's nothing here that like says your city specializes in furniture. So I guess it's just something that you kind of have to like intuitively understand, that you've lowered your taxes on furniture, you're selling a lot of furniture, and maybe that's part of what this efficiency is. I feel like they've told us that this specialization thing happens, but they haven't told us like how to see it in the game.
Trade
and I want to see it.
That keeps cash flowing in. Managing and adjusting production.
This on the left shows us where the natural resources are. We can see how much we're using. Oh, and wood gets renewed and fertile land gets renewed. But we can see here that ore and oil don't. Oh, and this shows you the nodes.
Chains is another way you can influence your city's economy. Overhauled in City Skylines II, this adds a whole new dimension to city building. There's no need to micromanage every detail if you don't want to. But if you love a puzzle...
And here it finally tells us what these columns are. So we now know that the leftmost column is how much is being produced. Is there a surplus of it, or is there a deficit of it? And we have learned that having these both be very close to 0 is good. Until reading this dev diary, I have been trying to get everything into a surplus. And that's not how that works anymore. So,
There's almost no limit to how deep you can go. Starting from raw material extraction, you can get raw materials into the city by importing them
yeah,
or producing them
jokes
locally.
for sure.
Opt for local
And that's how they
production,
describe it
and you'll need
happening.
to establish a
But I
specialized
like
industry area.
I want
There are
something
9 total.
that says your city specializes in furniture. Like I want something that specifically spells out, hey, you've done this enough that your city is specializing in this, and thus you're getting a bonus. You know what I mean? I want it just spelled right out here. Here we can see that it tells you how suitable an area is for the zone that you're trying to zone. And it shows you the ground pollution as well.
4 are farms where you can raise livestock or grow either grain, vegetables, or cotton.
Yeah,
Forests
RTX, yeah.
produce timber, though how much depends on the age of the forest. You can extract ore, stone, or coal from underground deposits. And lastly, you can drill for oil. You'll manage all this activity via the economy panel. It puts your city's finances at a glance and allows you to monitor and adjust production outputs for various goods and materials. With integrated
Here's the loan
tools
being
and
done.
clear displays,
And I think
the
it's really,
economy
it
panel
makes a
is
lot of sense.
user-friendly way to manage
And then they're
and
taxing
grow
the
your
education
economy.
people. Oh, look how much
So,
money he
if
in that
money really does
screen
make the world
in that
turn,
it was in that clip. It was
how will you grow your city's
$181,000
economy
income.
so everyone in it can enjoy the ride.
Yeah, enjoy the ride. So that's that. YouTube, let me know. Is this too complicated? I appreciate you sticking this out for 2.5 hours almost. Subscribe to this channel. And you're great. Have a great day, YouTube. You're fantastic. I don't care what your mothers say about you. Bye-bye.